We're going to begin with those severe summer storms that we are continuing to track across the country. In the Midwest, people are cleaning up toppled trees and debris this morning after at least 5 tornadoes tore through southern Wisconsin yesterday. Take a look at this.
I got a tornado right in front of me. Tornado right in front of me. Right here, right here. Tornado on the ground. Tornado on the ground. Holy I got it.
As you can hear, though, these massive twisters stunned storm chasers. Meanwhile, in the Northeast, 1 man died and 13 others, it includes kids, were injured yesterday after they were struck by lightning. It happened during a Cub Scout event at an archery range in New Jersey. Well, the severe storm risk is slightly lower today, but we are still watching out for heavy rainfall, in fact, up to 10 inches, and that could trigger flash flooding in states along the Gulf Coast. We, of course, have Angie Lassman here tracking it all for us. But first, let's go to NBC News correspondent George Solis. He's in New Orleans, which is being threatened by a tropical storm. George, good morning.
The rain here in New Orleans and surrounding region expected to come in waves. Now, this system isn't expected to develop into a tropical storm or depression, but it's still expected to bring a lot of tropical moisture. And what that means, intense rainfall and the potential for some flooding. Now, some areas in Louisiana and around the region could see up to 10 inches. So residents here, of course, on high alert. What we've seen are a number of businesses putting sandbags out in front of their businesses. We saw a number of people also collecting sandbags from a number of regions around New Orleans and surrounding parishes, regions here. People not taking any chances. Outside of that, this storm expected again to be a downpour. It could move very fast. A lot of folks keeping their eye on the forecast. Elsewhere in other parts of the country, tragedy struck. 1 man dead, more than a dozen injured after a lightning strike in New Jersey. We're getting more information about that particular incident right now. Unfortunately, some more details looking to be forthcoming here in the next several hours. The other big headline today is that intense heat. More than 70 million people under those heat alerts. So hydration, staying indoors as much as possible. And of course, we cannot talk about weather without some of those severe twisters that we've been seeing ramp up, particularly around the Midwest. We saw some yesterday, some of those images completely harrowing of those twisters just ripping through the sky across several towns. Some more assessment of those tornadoes expected today. But back here in Louisiana, again, the storm here set to make landfall, if you will, in the next several hours. We're looking at, again, some rain starting to fall now. And again, it's supposed to ramp up here throughout the day. Again, as much as 10 inches in some regions, and folks here definitely bracing for whatever this storm brings. Back to you.
All right, George, thank you. Well, let's get to meteorologist Angie Lassman. She is tracking that tropical disturbance along the Gulf Coast for us this morning. Hey, Angie, good morning.
Hi there, Savannah. Good morning to you. George got it right when he said that we're going to see some heavy rainfall and the potential for flash flooding here in the coming days. It's not just a today problem along the Gulf Coast. It's going to be multiple days of this, so ample amounts of rain are on the way. Here's the lay of the land of what we're dealing with right now. The system really can't get its act together. We're talking about just a 30% chance of any development. So right now we're looking at it to be fairly unlikely for this to develop into a tropical depression or anything beyond that. But that doesn't mean it's not going to be impactful when it comes to the weather that it brings across this region. Here's what we're looking at and how it times out as we get through the day today. Notice some of those showers that are focused across essentially the panhandle of Florida back to the west over Louisiana. Louisiana is where we'll see some of that heaviest rain. It looks like this system will kind of stay spinning right near that central Gulf Coast. So that's where most of the heaviest of the rain will be. And then tomorrow, more of the same, again, across that same region. Galveston, Texas, back to the east towards Pensacola is where we'll see the potential for flooding with additional rainfall on the way here, even as we get into tomorrow. By the time we get through the weekend, specifically Saturday, it looks like we'll pick up a good dose of rain across this area. So I think more widespread amounts, an inch, 2 inches, 3, maybe up to 5 inches. But there's going to be some localized spots, especially the closer you get to the coast, where we could see anywhere from 10 to 15 inches of rain. So really concerned about the flash flooding across that region over multiple days heading into the weekend. Bigger picture look, we've got a cold front that we're tracking across the east and the northern tier of the country. Scattered showers today from Ohio Valley all the way to New England. We'll see kind of a lower threat of severe weather, but some gusty winds, some heavy rainfall on the table once again across that area. And then tomorrow, we'll see some of those showers and thunderstorms focused across the southeast and more of that rain across parts of the Midwest. When it's all said and done, an inch or 2 across this region, not quite quite as concerned, Savannah, about the flash flooding in this area, but of course, multiple days of rain on the way along the Gulf Coast.
All right, Angie, thank you so much. So much going on. Now let's turn to the White House. President Trump is now downplaying reports that he's been planning to fire the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell. So markets initially dropped. This was yesterday after a White House official said the president would likely soon fire Powell. And this was after he received support for that move from GOP lawmakers following a meeting on Tuesday. They said he asked them about it. What do you think? Should I fire him? They all said yes. Well, markets then rebounded after Mr. Trump, who's, of course, long criticized Powell for not cutting interest rates, denied that he was planning to oust the Fed chair. Take a listen to what the president said in the Oval Office yesterday.
He's always been too late, hence his nickname, Too Late. He should have cut interest rates a long time ago. We're not planning on doing anything. We're very concerned. I don't rule out anything, but I think it's highly unlikely unless he has to leave for fraud. I mean, it's possible there's fraud involved with the $2.7 billion renovation.
Well, here with more is NBC News White House correspondent Vaughn Hilliard and Investopedia's editor-in-chief, our friend Caleb Silver. Good morning to both of you. Vaughn, I will start with you. We're going to get into that whole notion there of fraud and the renovation in just a moment. But first, let's talk about how this all unfolded. From that meeting I mentioned where the president sort of sourced opinions on if he should fire him to then these comments saying it's not happening. Is the door still open to fire Powell? What do you think?
Right. This is something that the president has floated now for months. His ire for Jerome Powell has only increased with the passing of time, with the Fed refusing to largely lower interest rates. And that is what has led the president to go behind closed doors with Republican lawmakers back on Tuesday afternoon and tell them that he was considering firing the Fed chair. But that's when, less than 24 hours after that, you heard there from the president directly saying that it's highly unlikely that he will. That said, there's a Republican Florida lawmaker who was in the meeting there with the president who said that she was told that it was 99% imminent that he was going to go through with this here. So there's a lot of back and forth between the president, will he or will he not? But if he were to do this, the stakes of it would be sky high.
Caleb, let's bring you in here and just talk through why the president wants this potentially. Like he's said verbally so many times how he wants them to lower those interest rates. Of course, that has not actually happened. You have told us that you're not predicting it will happen. Why is it that he wants that? Why is it that the Fed won't do it?
Yeah, two reasons. One, lower interest rates means cheaper money, means more spending by consumers and by businesses. More spending could stimulate the economy. Probably more record highs for the stock market. But the real reason is because of the interest we pay on our national debt, which is some $888 billion. A lot of that is due to high interest rates. If interest rates were lower, those payments would be lower. That would free up more money for the Trump administration to pursue whatever they want with that money. Spend it on the anti-immigration policies, potentially offset some of the impact of the tariffs that are supposed to come into place August 1st. So those are the key reasons.
And sort of a political win, right? Like everybody feels like, oh, my mortgage might go down kind of a thing under this president.
Right. The flip side of that is you get higher inflation when you lower interest rates because we spend a lot more and that drives prices higher. That could actually slow the economy because we'll tap out if prices rise again.
Vaughn, let's talk now about this renovation that keeps coming up. So we heard it there in that sound that we played, and there was a lot more of it in this press conference from the Oval Office yesterday of the president criticizing this planned $2.5 billion building renovation project, saying, you know, they don't need parks on the ceilings of buildings, things like that. Is this considered controversial? And also, specifically the fact that he used that word fraud yesterday was kind of throwing something new in there, I think, a little bit, where it's like this potential, if he wants to, there could be cause to potentially fire the Fed chair. Tell us about this.
Right. Number one, the Fed denies that their construction project of their Washington headquarters is going and ultimately building things like garden rooftop terraces or having new slabs of marble throughout it or a VIP dining room. They deny what the White House is claiming is part of this construction project. But there's a legal question as to whether the president can actually fire the Fed chair. Just this spring, the Supreme Court suggested that the president did not have the power at will to fire Jerome Powell. And so that is where you were seeing sort of a pretext being laid by Russ Vought, his OMB director here at the White House, but also the president himself suggesting there may be fraud through this reconstruction project, because Jerome Powell has specifically said on 2 occasions that if the president were to try to fire him or ask him to step aside, he would be specific and respond no here. And so this is where this gets at the legal heart of this, of whether the president, even if he wants to, before his term ends in May of 2026, Jerome Powell's term ends next year, whether he even has the ability to go through with such a move as this.
Caleb, we did see briefly markets react negatively when these reports were surfacing, which was pretty close to then when we heard from the president saying, I'm not planning to do this imminently. What could happen if he follows through with it? How do you see markets reacting? What's that mean for everybody at home?
It's just another erosion of trust in the system here, because the Fed is independent, has been that way since the Federal Reserve Act of 1914. You want them independent because monetary policy is something very delicate. If the president is imposing tariffs, if we're doing more government spending, we need an independent body to make sure that we don't have sky-high inflation again, like we did a few years ago. Also, we've never had a president fire a Fed chair before, and it's not as if Fed Chair Jerome Powell makes these decisions on interest rates himself. There is a committee of Fed governors, the FOMC, that makes this decision. So if he fires him, you'll get a lawsuit probably by Powell. That'll go on for months. The vice chair would be appointed, but that still doesn't guarantee lower interest rates. So this could be very messy for quite a while. The next meeting, of course, in 13 days, 5 hours and 40 minutes. I will be there for that meeting because it's going to be really interesting.
Oh, I wasn't even expecting a countdown clock today. Caleb, thank you. Vaughn, thank you. Covering a lot for us. Well, in a dramatic reversal, President Trump is now slamming some of his own supporters who have called for the release of files related to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Yesterday on social media, the president called the whole thing a hoax. And this all comes after the Justice Department published a memo earlier this month stating there was no evidence of a, quote, incriminating client list. NBC News correspondent Alice Barr has the latest from Washington.
As a rare rift divides MAGA world over the Jeffrey Epstein case, President Trump growing increasingly frustrated with some of his own supporters.
It's all been a big hoax. It's perpetrated by the Democrats, and some stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans fall into the net.
In a lengthy post on social media, disowning supporters he called weaklings for buying into what he terms BS. But while the president blames Democrats, right-wing influencers and some members of his own administration were among the loudest voices perpetuating conspiracy theories, believing that Epstein, who was charged and died by suicide in jail during the first Trump term, did not kill himself and that he left an incriminating client list. Here's FBI Director Kash Patel 2 years ago.
Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are.
President Trump made a campaign promise to release the Epstein files, but last week the Justice Department and FBI contradicted the swirling conspiracies and said they would not release more evidence. Attorney General Pam Bondi has been taking the heat from angered MAGA allies, with some now directed at the president himself.
If you talk about this, I'm going to excommunicate you. Well, you're not the Pope, bro.
Some Republican lawmakers calling for more disclosures.
The Epstein files need to be released.
I would say make it all public.
As President Trump stands by his attorney general.
She says, I gave you all the credible information.
And presses his base to move on.
Multiple federal law enforcement officials tell NBC News the memo reaffirming Epstein was not murdered behind bars and that he did not keep a client list accurately describes the investigation's findings. President Trump says if the attorney general does find more credible information, she should release it. Savannah?
All right, Alice, thank you so much. Well, as you just mentioned, President Trump has forcefully dismissed this recent interest in the Epstein case when he's tried to distance himself from Epstein. But 3 decades ago, the two were members of the same social circles in Florida. News Now anchor Helly Jackson takes a look back at their history together.
President Trump dismissing the interest now in the Epstein case.
I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff.
And distancing himself from the convicted sex offender, as the president's been doing for years.
I had a falling out with him a long time ago.
In the Oval Office in 2019, making clear his feelings on Epstein at that point.
I don't think I've spoken to him for 15 years. I wasn't a fan.
There's no evidence the president is connected to any of Epstein's crimes. We do know the two did have a relationship. The president acknowledging both men crossed paths in Palm Beach back in the 90s. NBC News archival video from 1992 shows the president with Epstein at a Mar-a-Lago party alongside cheerleaders for the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. Mr. Trump greeting guests, including Epstein.
Come on in. Go inside.
The two chatting and gesturing to those in front of them. At one point, it appears Mr. Trump leans over and tells Epstein she's hot. The video, taken more than a decade before Epstein's plea deal, which made him register as a sex offender in Florida. Between 1993 and 1997, flight logs, released in the trial of Epstein's now convicted associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, show Mr. Trump flew on Epstein's plane multiple times. In 2002, Mr. Trump told New York Magazine, "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with." Adding, "It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side." Epstein claiming to author Michael Wolff in 2017 that the two men were at one time very close.
That was close to straight.
There's no other evidence they were that friendly, and the two ended up having a falling out in 2004, according to people who spoke with the Washington Post, over competition for an oceanfront property in Florida. The president has confirmed the friendship ended, though he didn't specify why.
The reason doesn't make any difference, frankly.
Of course, President Trump is not the only powerful person who spent time with Epstein. Former President Bill Clinton, former VP Al Gore, Bill Gates, all named in court documents as being connected to Epstein. There's been no evidence that any of these people, including President Trump, have been involved in Epstein's crimes, and they've denied any wrongdoing, all as the Epstein case is back in the spotlight.
I don't understand why it keeps going. I think really only pretty bad people, including fake news, want to keep something like that going. But credible information, let them give it. Anything that's credible, I would say let them have it.
Our thanks to Hallie Jackson for that report. Now we head to Capitol Hill, where the Senate worked overnight to approve $9.4 billion in spending cuts requested by President Trump. The final vote was 51-48, with 2 Republicans opposing the measure. That was Senator Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. This vote brings President Trump one step closer to having his Department of Government Efficiency cuts approved by Congress. NBC News correspondent, Capitol Hill correspondent, I should say, Julie Sorkin joins us from Washington with more on this. Hey, Julie, good morning. So what more can you tell us about this overnight vote, the cuts that are in this bill, and what I just mentioned there, sort of like the approval from DOJ, since we already saw so much of that happen?
Yeah, I think, Savannah, senators are unfortunately getting used to pulling all-nighters and voting overnight, because we've seen this trend over the last couple of months as they try to pass the president's key agenda items. And this was certainly high on the list for the president. This is a rare move for Congress to make, because essentially what they're doing in passing this $9 billion rescissions package is giving back the funding they already appropriated. This is why you saw 2 Senate Republicans ultimately vote against this package, which would cut funding to foreign aid and also public broadcasting here back home. Senator Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski had concerns about those cuts, but also concerns about what precedent this would set in ceding power to the executive branch, even more power. The last time this happened was back in the 1990s, when a president had signed a rescissions package. So a really rare move here happening overnight.
Julie, what happens next with this bill?
Well, it's going to head to the House. They could take it up as soon as today. Remember, the deadline to take this package up is actually Friday, because of the procedural machinations of how this process works, given that it is so rare. You mentioned DOJ. Of course, that is a reason why they're trying to codify these spending cuts. $9 billion is really a drop in the bucket. And think about how difficult it is for them to put up the votes, because, of course, Democrats are not voting for this, not helping Republicans out, and get these packages passed. They wanted to target a lot more in cuts. You'll remember on the campaign trail, Elon Musk, back then when he was friendly with the president, was saying that they would cut close to $2 trillion. Obviously, that's not happening. They passed a multi-trillion-dollar package, Savannah, that adds money to the deficit. This is Republicans' attempts to begin to cut some of that spending. But again, just $9 billion, and still kind of a long road ahead.
Julie, also, let's talk about what else we might see today in other news. The Senate Judiciary Committee is expected to vote on this series of nominations later this morning. There's obviously always stuff to talk about here, but there is this one that's sort of controversial, some back and forth here. Tell us what you're watching.
Yeah, Emil Bovee, he is somebody that the president nominated to be for a lifetime appointment on the Third Circuit of Appeals. And he is controversial, Savannah, because of comments he's made in the past. He's the principal deputy attorney general for the Trump administration already. He was a lawyer for him. And he had suggested, according to whistleblowers, that Democrats had tried to bring forward to stop this process. According to that whistleblower, he suggested that perhaps the Trump administration should defy court orders, specifically when it comes to the court rulings where they tried to counter the administration's efforts in deporting migrants to foreign countries where they have no relations to in some cases. Of course, we saw that play out so publicly with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Democrats trying to stop this from going through, but it does sound like it will be successful. The Judiciary Committee is meeting this morning to process that nomination to the full floor for a vote. Tom Tillis, who was kind of that last holdout that we were watching, said yesterday he would vote for him. So it does seem like he is on a glide path to confirmation here, Savannah.
All right, Julie Sirkin, thank you so much. Well, now to a devastating story out of Arizona that's gaining national attention this morning. The husband of a well-known TikTok influencer could face felony child abuse charges after their 3-year-old son drowned in the family's pool. NBC News correspondent Camila Burnell has the latest on the investigation.
I love you. It's a tragedy followed by millions that could soon be a criminal case. Social media influencer Emily Kaiser's son drowned in the family pool back in May.
And this is Trig.
Trig was just 3 years old. Emily often posting about him.
I'm so grateful for Trig, and I love him so much.
Police in Chandler, Arizona say they're recommending a felony child abuse charge against the boy's father, Brady Kaiser. At the time of the drowning, Emily wasn't home, according to a search warrant affidavit obtained by our Phoenix affiliate KPNX. Brady told police that after dinner, he saw Trig in the backyard playing near the pool. He said he was distracted by his infant son and added that he lost sight of Trig for approximately 3 to 5 minutes. The documents say the dad immediately jumped in, trying to save him, and called 911. Trig died at the hospital a few days later.
It rises to the level of criminal charges under the law when it's a negligent act, meaning that the parents are careless and they should have done something to prevent the death of their child.
Brady Kaiser could not be reached for comment, and Emily's attorney did not respond to our request for comment. But in a lawsuit attempting to seal the records related to Trig's death, her attorney called it a heartbreaking accidental drowning, adding Emily is going through a parent's worst nightmare.
Our thanks to Camila Burnell for that report. Well, the Maricopa County Attorney's Office says the case is under review, but told NBC there's no timeline for a charging decision.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.